Hello, everybody.
Welcome to another installment of Fireside Chat in the basement of my made up hunting cabin, as I like to call it. Um, the purpose of today's video is to talk about sustainability. We are also going to talk about human impacts because they kind of follow each other. So that is the purpose of this video, and we're pretty much going to wrap up the lecture for this unit, and that is it. The rest of this will be work on your own objectives, couple worksheets, and I'll send you some pictures of some posters that I'm going to have you to do. But let's have a fact of the day so that we can get started. And it turns out that there are two police officers in New York City that are assigned specifically to the beekeeping unit. Their job is to respond and answer to any incidents that involve honeybees. Because, of course, we're concerned about the honeybees. And in New York City, they can be a pest, but we also understand their value. So we've put the police in charge. Hopefully, they're doing the right thing. We'll see. All right, so let's talk about sustainability. All right, we looked at sustainability very briefly in one of the other lectures, and I'll just say it's as simple as, can the ecosystem handle the rate over the long term? Right? The biggest fear that we don't really understand, because we don't rely on fish as our diet, but the biggest fear these days is that the oceans are going to run out of fish. There are many humans that live a lot in the Far East, China, Japan, Malaysia, a lot of the India, countries down there, Africa. They rely heavily on fish as a part of their diet, and they have been harvesting the seas like crazy. Same with the west side of North America, from Alaska all the way down that side, wherever there are fish or crabs, right? Lobsters, things like that, they are harvesting. And due to our increase in population, we are removing that resource of fish and crustaceans from the ocean at what is called an unsustainable rate. Okay, so when it comes to harvest, you have to harvest only the amount that the environment has the ability to replace in that amount of time. Okay, I'm wearing my Homer Pride today, but I wear my ESF shirt a lot in that I went to college to learn about sustainable forest practices, where you set up a system where this forest can provide this much wood at a sustainable rate, where we're going to be able to take 20 face cords out of this small little stand, but if we manage it properly, we can come back every 4 to 5 years, and we can take another 10 face cords out. And that's what sustainability is. If that's not enough, well, you have to get more woods, right? Because if you try to take out 20 face cords every year out of that forest, there's going to be no wood left in the long run. And so that's what sustainability on the harvest side is. Sustainability on the pollution side is that you can only put things into the environment that at a rate that the environment can assimilate. Right? There's plants that have the ability, like we said, to break down all kinds of materials, bacteria. They absorb things through their leaves, through there are all kinds of organisms that can decompose all kinds of organic materials as well as inorganic and harmful materials. And so the environment can assimilate all that stuff and break it down. We've talked about how there's even bacteria that breaks down plastic. And so the environment can do that. But are we putting in garbage at a rate that the environment can assimilate and handle? I don't know. We've got a lot of giant dumps out there that might say no. Okay, so this is another side of sustainability where we might be a little bit concerned. I know this is so cheery to end the year this way. Believe me, I hate talking about this stuff at the end of the year. And usually it's 9,000 degrees in my classroom and I'm miserable as it is. They're like, we're all gonna die. It's so hot. But just kidding. Anyways, the last one is the one where we talk about hope, right? There are resources that are unsustainable. They are non renewable. They're not coming back, right? Coal, for example, it's going to be gone. Oil, it's going to be gone, right? And so we should try to be using this stuff at a rate so that by the time we do run out of oil and coal and gas, we have the substitute up and running at the level that is our need, right? And that's what we're trying right now, right? We are trying to get enough solar panels up there. We're trying to get enough wind farms or whatever we can to get energy from other sources with the hopes that when all the oil is gone, we can still provide energy. We're obviously not there yet, but it is what we need to be working towards, because if we don't, we're not going to have enough energy to go around, and I can only imagine how well we'll all get along with each other then. So this leads to human impacts. Now, no matter which way you slice it, whether we talk about direct harvesting or land use or habitat destruction, deforestation, however these terms are, right? The important thing is that humans are, number one, destroying habitats. Whether it's through land use, deforestation, or whatever, we are destroying habitats for species. And it stinks too that not only are we destroying habitats, but we're also fragmenting habitats for species. You may have never heard of habitat fragmentation, but we may save a plot here or a pocket here, but some of these species need hundreds and hundreds of miles to roam. And by just giving them these little fragments, it's still not enough. Same thing goes for migratory birds. Migratory birds can travel thousands of miles, and they may not have all the stopping places that they need to make it, because we are using that space for our needs. And so we are really just taking away habitat, which is just a place where their resources are, whether it's just to catch a rest so they can continue their migration, or whether it's, hey, this is the one spot where the Venus flytrap lives. You can't, dig here. So that is the biggest problem. And it all comes back to humans and our population, in that we are overpopulated and we are taking things at an unsustainable rate. Two other important buzzwords that we talk about are biodiversity. We need biodiversity, as we talked about in the biodiversity lab, for maintaining a healthy ecosystem, hopefully finding a species that may be able to cure cancer or some other disease, or help us with some product, or just keeping the life on Earth going, right? If a huge amount of the populations of living communities die, there will still be something alive if we have enough diversity on this planet. So biodiversity is important even on the chaotic level. Not that we'll ever get to that. Um, Imported species, another interesting topic that I love to talk about. Usually I show you guys the um, cane toads video where we learn all about how the cane toads were brought to Australia by a huge mistake and what a problem they caused. There's a picture of them right there. But there's lots of species who have entered our areas and are causing problems for native species. The big one that we see now and everybody sees, you may not even know it, is starlings, those birds that are all around here. Those starlings are those like blackbirds with the yellow beaks. They are taking away bluebird populations. The bluebird is our state bird, and the European starling, just because some guy wanted all the birds from the literature from Shakespeare brought here to America. He brought a bunch of starlings, and now they've almost wiped out our bluebird population. So, imported species can cause a big problem. Another good example, in a weird way, is the zebra mussel. Right, the zebra mussel are filter feeders, and they're actually too good at their job. They're overpopulating and filtering out the particles from the lake so clean that the water penetrates deeper, in all of our Finger Lakes and the other places that have been covered in um, zebra mussels are now too warm, and the fish that normally live there don't have enough oxygen, and they're starting to die off. Big problem. Ozone and global warming. These two, a lot of people get confused nowadays. Back in the day, you had to watch An Inconvenient Truth, which was a movie by Vice President Al Gore, who talked about what global warming was, right? As industry, cars produce more CO2 in the air, right? Everybody wants to talk about cow farts, right? Um, from cows and growing in these huge feedlots, right? All of this is putting greenhouse gases like CO2 and methane in the air, and it's acting as a blanket that is trapping the sun's energy, right? As you can see, the sun's energy wants to hit the earth and bounce back. Luckily, we have an atmosphere that keeps some of that heat in so we can have a regular uh, temperature, somewhat stable temperature, right? Other planets go from 1,000 degrees to 1,000 degrees, in either direction at any time, but we have a much nicer buffered range because of our atmosphere. But the thickening of this atmosphere is increasing our global temperature, and that's what global warming is. Now, this is different from ozone depletion, which is further up in the stratosphere. The ozone layer, O3, as it is as a molecule, ozone is a protector against UV radiation. We want the ozone layer up there. It is very important in that it protects us from UV radiation. But we were using lots of chemicals, styrofoams, something called CFCs, these hairsprays. I remember when I was in high school, everybody had their bangs, and their bangs were like, 6 inches tall, and they used Aquanet, and they had these big, I don't know, that was just the style back then. Anyways, um, those propellants contained CFCs, and what they did was, once they got into the atmosphere, they interacted with the ozone, formed a precipitate, it dropped out. And so the ozone layer depleted. And that, of course, meant we had an increase in cases of cancer, skin cancer, melanomas. And so we figured this out luckily, and we passed laws. Now you can see a lot of the cans talk about how they have safe propellants in them and things like that, so that we're not killing our ozone. Very important. So we will leave it at that. Um, and that's it. I hope that you've learned something about the environment. Usually we get into long, um, depressing conversations about the environment. So luckily we don't have to do that. But the environment is a great thing. You guys are hopefully going to use some of this knowledge and the other things that you know to vote your way back to a healthy environment. That is the only way now that we can save our environment is through voting. Vote for people who put that in their front of their platform, because if we do not save the earth we live on, you know, you guys are going to be in trouble. I might make it. Your grandparents are going to make it on a safe earth, but you and your children probably would like an earth to live on. So remember that when you get older and you say, should I register to vote? Yes. And you should think about the environment when you go to the voting booth, because you're going to need a place to live. And so, with that semi rant, because I love the environment so much, I will be signing off, and I hope you have a nice one. We'll see you.